Hello and welcome to the next part of our Guided Changeover Solution video series. In the first video you got some information about the software itself, the solution itself, some information about what an evaluation kit is, how you can get this evaluation kit for testing and trying out and so on. In the second video we made the first steps in configuration and setting up the system. We did the first steps in the software as well. And this time in this video we will see how to create recipes with this already configured hardware and how we can copy recipes at the end and how we can make them available for the operator. So to create a recipe or a new format, we have to go in our software to the product configuration. The product configuration looks like this. Here you will see later on the list of different formats, the list of different recipes. So let's add a new one here. And first of all, we can give a name, and let's imagine that we have a filling line, for example, and with this filling line it is possible to fill 3 different sizes of bottles: 0.33 liter, 0.5 liter and 1 liter bottles, for example. And every time when you change the recipe or change the production, you have to change your recipes and you have to change the formats. So the first recipe could get the name 0.33 bottles. Yeah. We can also upload an image for this recipe so that this makes it easier later on to select the correct one. And if we go to our changeover solution, we have some pictures here. You are absolutely free in using any kind of pictures you want. It could be a picture of the product, could be a picture of the application or whatever. So let's use this 0.33 bottle here. This makes sense for this recipe. So this is what we want to add to our list. The next step we have to do is to edit the tasks. So this is at the end the area where you will see the different steps of your format change, the different ingredients of the recipe at the end. Yeah? It will be tasks all the time and it will be instructions for these tasks. So let's add first one task, and let's imagine that for the production or the filling of a specific size of a bottle, it is necessary to change some dimensions of a conveyor belt, for example, or of a shrinking tunnel, could be something like this. So let's start with the change of the conveyor belt. So in this task you can give some instructions with this plus, and here you can clearly describe what the operator has to do in this task. Yeah, it could be a headline like check the width of the conveyor belt. And here in the description maybe go to area 32 and change the something like this. Here as well you can upload an image to make it more clear what has to be done, and this could be a picture, for example, of the device where or with what the operator has to change this width or has to do this task. And it could be also a picture of the application itself so that the operator knows where he has to go to change this or to do this this task. Or it could be a combination of both. So as I said, you are able, or you are free to create your own pictures here. So it could be something like this. You say, okay, here, this is the area in your application where you have to go to and to change the width of the conveyor belt. The sensor we are using, or the device we are using for this, is our conveyor belt width. Yeah? And this is, if you remember, this digital position indicator. In the hardware configuration, we gave the name or the description to this device here, and we named it conveyor belt width. So this is our device. The accurate width, or the value which has to be set, yeah, this is also very easy to edit. You can type it in, the actual value or the necessary value, directly if you know this, or you can get it directly from the device itself. So if we say, okay, we change the conveyor belt width now to this position, and this is the perfect position for this new format, then you can say, okay, let's teach in this, and then you have the value directly from the device. But you can also give an upper and a lower threshold, so that you can say, okay, 75 and 65 is also okay. Here is a selection of the check device configuration. That is our smart light indicator here. And in the last video we explained already that it's possible to use this device for one specific sensor or device to check if there is a problem or not. Let's do this with this smart light indicator here. So this is responsible for this device. And then we can add this instruction to this task. After this configuration, we are going to create a new group with the add group and give the name shrinking tunnel. So this is also a unit where some changes, some settings have to be done, and here we are also getting a task in this group shrinking tunnel, and that is similar. Say check the height of the tunnel, and the description is also similar. Go to area 54 and check the measurement. Again, we can upload an image, and this can be also a picture of the application, for example, something like this kind of tunnel. And here is a selection of the sensor again, and of course we are doing this here with our tunnel height measurement. And in our last session we configured this measurement unit here as this tunnel height detection. And here again we can directly teach in the actual value, but before we have to choose if we want to work in inch or millimeter, and then, as I said, we can teach in the actual value. And maybe this is not correct, we can teach again. This looks better, and we can say, okay, the upper threshold and the lower threshold is like this. So that's it. Let's create a third group, and that is check material. In this third group we can create an instruction where we are not using any kind of sensor. This is just an information for the operator which says, okay, check the bottles. Yeah. Are there enough bottles available. So do we have enough material for this filling procedure? We can upload an image. This could be a reminder looking like this, for example. And then we can add without putting a sensor in. So this is just for information. The last group we are going to create, or the last activity, is to select the correct format change. The correct change tool which we are going to use for this procedure. And let's imagine that for these 3 different sizes of bottles, we need 3 different sizes of transport units. And these transport units we have to detect first before we build it in, if this is the correct one. So to configure these different transport units, we have to go back one step out of the product configuration, and we have to first configure the exchange part configuration here. So if we go in here, we add a new device. This is for change part. Let's say this is for transport unit 0.33, and we are doing this with our change tools device, which is this RFID read-write head. We have 3 different tags here, and let's say, okay, the first one, this indicates that this is the right transport unit for our 0.33 bottles. And if we select this, then we can teach in directly the ID code, and that means that now this is indicated as the correct tag for this transport unit 0.33. Let's add this. We can add another one and say, okay, maybe we also have a transport unit for 0.5 liter. And this is what we're also going to check with our change tools device here. But now we are using another one and say, okay, teach in. This is the ID code for the 0.5 bottles. And maybe the last one, we also have the big bottles. That means transport unit 1 liter. Unit. Again, doing this with the change tools. And let's imagine we are trying to use the same again, and if I teach this in, I immediately get the information, no, this tag is already in use for the 0.33 bottles, so this cannot be the correct transport unit. But if I'm using this one, then this will be the correct one. So now we have 3 transport units, and this is what we can use in our recipe. Okay, let's go back to the product configuration and back to the editor, and we are going to create the last group, which is transport unit. And the task here is assemble transport unit for 0.33 bottles. Yeah. Okay, you can get some descriptions as well, more clear text, but we also can upload an image here, and this could be a reminder or an indicator about how this looks like. This could be something like this, these kind of transport units here, that is what we are talking about, and we have to select the correct one for 0.33 bottles. And which one is it? What we already teached in, and that means we have these three selections here, and of course we have to use transport unit 0.3. Okay, we have to give a description, go to area 67 and change the transport unit. Okay, we are. Now we are finished with this recipe. We have 4 different groups. We have different tasks in these groups. We learned the devices, the sensors, we configured the devices, we have read in the actual value already, and we saw that we also can type in directly the values or maybe the thresholds. If the operator wants to select one of these recipes, he will go into the area product selection, but unfortunately there is nothing to select here right now, and the reason is that in the product configuration we first have to move this slider here, approved for usage. The reason is that you can add some recipes and you can create recipes, you can change them, and you can leave them here in this list even if they are not finished right now. As long as they are not approved for usage, they will not be available for the operator. So now let's save this again, and if we go to the product selection now, then we see, okay, here is recipe number 1. If we have another recipe for the 0.5 liter bottles, for example, this is very easy to create if the steps are almost the same, but only the dimensions, of the conveyor belts and the transport units, of course, will be different, but the steps are the same. Then you can copy this. And this is how you do this. Go into the configuration, add a new recipe like 0.5 liter bottles. We upload an image. This is a 0.5 liter bottle. And if you have another recipe, you can go back into what you already created, go into Edit Tasks, and then you see here you have the chance to duplicate the task. If you do so, then you will be asked, okay, where do you want to copy these tasks? And then you get the list of all the already created recipes you have. This is, in our case, the 0.5 liter bottles. Now it's copied, and if we go back to the 0.5 liter bottles recipe, we see, okay, all the tasks are already copied. The only thing you have to do is, of course, to change the dimensions. That means some descriptions, maybe, if we're talking about the 0.33 transport unit or something like that, or maybe the values of the sensors here are not correct. For the 0.5 it might be a little bit bigger, so not 70 but maybe 90 is the correct value. Teach that in, give the thresholds, and that's it. In the transport units, for example, of course you have to select the transport unit for 0.5 liter bottles, and you have to change maybe some descriptions, and that's it. And then you copied already the recipe. That is the way how to create these recipes. You can store the recipes as well in the backup and restore area, and if you do so and do a backup, then the backup file will be downloaded yeah, and you will find it in your download area. Here you see the name, yeah, of the already created download file, and of course if you go to your download area, you see here your file, and you can put that here into the projects, for example, and rename it and say this is our bottle project, for example. In our guided changeover software, we can go via recovery and reload these projects. Yeah? So if you go to the recovery area, you see here our bottle project, and you can select this, open it, and then it will be uploaded and started. So that is a way how to work with recipes, how to create the recipes, change it, how to add the hardware inside, how to save these recipes or recover them. And if you want to know how the operator really will be guided through these recipes, through the different steps of these recipes, then please join our next video, and in this session we will show you how the operator will be guided through the different steps. So thank you very much for joining today, and hope to see you again.